morning. It's just past 8 by the clock. We are back again with another edition of Breakfast News. The next 60 minutes packed with news on the happenings overnight, and we look forward to the day the Prime Minister's twin events, India's vaccination drive picking up further pace. We have crossed that 90 crore mark. Sports, Mumbai stay alive. They breathe another day. Looking forward to some opportunities to make it count. Lots to look forward to in the next 60 minutes. I am Anil Thomas to take you through. With me, my co-anchor Shubhendu Ghosh. Good morning,
Anil. Good morning and welcome to Breakfast News. This is day's first comprehensive news roundup, as Anil mentioned. A special focus on Prime Minister's interaction that is scheduled to take place later today with Svamitva beneficiaries. Also, new milestones for a vaccine drive. We'll also track other stories from India and across the world. Let's first look at the top stories.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to virtually interact with the beneficiaries of Svamitva scheme in Madhya Pradesh today to also distribute e-property cards to over 1.7 lakh beneficiaries under the scheme.
In a significant achievement, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage crosses 92 crore mark. Over 54 lakh 8,000 doses administered yesterday. WHO to take final call on approval for Bharat Biotech's co-vaccine next week.
National Health Authority revises Ayushman Bharat PMJY health benefit packages. Around 400 procedure rates revised. Additional medical management package related to black fungus also added.
Ministry of Road Transport and Highways released list of incentives, disincentives under vehicle scrapping policy. Aims to encourage vehicle owners to discard their old polluting vehicles having higher maintenance and fuel cost.
Terrorists shoot dead 3 civilians, including owner of the famous Srinagar-based pharmacy Bindru Medicate, in 3 separate incidents in Srinagar and Bandipora yesterday evening. Major search operation underway.
President Kovind on 3-day visit to Karnataka starting today to inaugurate newly built teaching hospital of Chamarajanagar Institute of Medical Sciences. Tomorrow to visit Dakshinamai Sri Sharada Peetham and Shankara Advaita Research Center in Sringeri on Friday.
Mumbai beat Rajasthan by 8 wickets in IPL to keep their hopes of reaching the playoffs intact. Achieved the target of 91 runs to win over Rajasthan with 70 deliveries to spare. Well, those were the headlines at the top of the Zar. Now for the stories in detail. As Shubhendu mentioned, the top story on Prime Minister interacting today through a virtual video conferencing. Let's take a look at the story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with beneficiaries of Svamitva scheme in Madhya Pradesh today via video conferencing. Prime Minister will also distribute e-property cards to 1,71,000 beneficiaries under the scheme on this occasion. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan will also be present during the event. Svamitva is a central sector scheme of the Ministry of Panchayati Raj that aims to provide property rights to the residents of rural inhabited areas. The scheme will pave the way for using property as a financial asset by villagers for taking loans and other financial benefits like in urban areas. It aims to demarcate inhabited lands in rural areas through the latest surveying drone technology. The scheme has also provided a boost to the ecosystem of drone manufacturing in the country. Well, for more on that story, we've got our correspondent Arun Sharma joining us this morning. Well, Arun, good morning. Arun, throw some more light, especially when it comes to this particular scheme, you know, how the scheme has benefited people, especially in the state of Madhya Pradesh.
Well, so this Svamitva scheme is playing a key role in providing ownership to the people of our country of their own land or their assets or their house or the residential properties where they're living in right now. Earlier also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2020 interacted with the beneficiaries of Svamitva scheme of other states as well. That includes, and we have seen that, you know, Svamitva cards are being given to the various other states beneficiaries like Uttar Pradesh also. The idea of the Svamitva scheme is to provide the ownership papers to the people who are already residing in some of the residential areas, or of course all those who have their land, but they don't have the papers, the property papers primarily for claiming that they are the owners of such land or residential areas. So Svamitva scheme plays a significant role, and this scheme is launched by the government of India so that proper ownership can be given to such people who do not have ownership papers or proof primarily of their own land or residential area. So today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when we speak about the Madhya Pradesh, he's going to interact with close to primarily he'll be giving these property papers or the Svamitva papers of the beneficiaries of Madhya Pradesh of close to 1.7 lakh or 1.71 lakh people. This will give a major push to the residential areas or give a major morale booster to those people who were already living in those land or primarily that residential area. Now, specifically, drone technology has been used to demarcate the areas as far as land is concerned, and proper demarcation has been done by the drone technologies. And drones are used in such a Svamitva scheme so that proper demarcation of land can be done. So there is no dispute primarily as far as demarcation of land is concerned, and clear-cut ownership rights can be given. Number two, for the residential areas, this Svamitva scheme, the ownership rights or papers are being given to the people. Now, what benefits will this have on the people? Number one, this will increase the property cost of the people who were early not having any kind of, property rights or primarily any kind of ownership status as far as that property is concerned. Number two, these people will now be having financial stability as well, because now they have complete clear-cut ideas to what is the asset value of the residential area or land whereby they are residing or they own as of now. This gives a major boost to the confidence of the people who were living in the property but were not having enough ownership status. So the government of India now giving a clear-cut, ownership status to these people, and gradually we are witnessing in various states such demarcation has been done, and of course property rights or property papers are being handed over to such beneficiaries so that they can have their own property in their name, in their own name, and of course the proper ownership right as well.
Right, Arun, hugely significant as people are going to have access to documentary proof to the land or the house they own. And you also mentioned about the use of state-of-the-art technology to be able to achieve this aim under Svamitva Yojana. Now, Arun, this program for now is happening in Madhya Pradesh, but a lot of people watching the progress of this program who are living in villages who face a similar challenge, they live in a particular property, don't have papers for the same. How does one go about being a part of Svamitva Yojana as a beneficiary?
Well, so it is the government that is doing it on its own, and it's demarcating as of now. That's number one. Number two, government is preparing a database statewide. That means all the state governments are gearing up for this initiative, and of course they're ensuring that how can property rights for the ownership can be given to those people who are already residing in some of the areas, but unfortunately they do not have papers for the same, or of course there is no proper demarcation in areas. There are various states in our country, whereby proper demarcation is not there, whereby people are living in some of the residential areas from many decades. But unfortunately, they do not have any ownership papers to showcase. So in this case, what happens? They cannot take loan on the property. That means they can mortgage their house and take loan against their property. So, and of course, banks do not provide loan on such properties. Number three, if in case they sell this property, they have to sell this property at much lower rate as compared to the market value of the property is. So unfortunately, the people were residing in these properties, but they were not having any kind of property ownership rights to show to anybody, neither bank or to any other seller or any buyer in the country. So now what government is doing, government is preparing the database. The state government and the central government under the Panchayati Raj Ministry is preparing the database, number one. Number two, drone technology is being used massively, whereby land demarcation is not there. So via drones, drone mapping, this demarcation is being done. So there is, complete transparency. There is no dispute as far as the demarcation of land is concerned. In case there is land involved, as far as ownership is concerned. Number 3, after this database is being prepared, gradually Svamitva cards or the ownership rights are being given to the owner who is living already there in that property. So this is being done by the state government and of course in coordination with the central government under the Panchayati Raj Ministry, so that a proper database can be prepared. Now today Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to interact with the beneficiaries, and of course close to 1.71 lakh Svamitva schemes card will be given to all those beneficiaries in Madhya Pradesh state. Gradually we'll witness that more such cards will be witnessed to various other states as well, as then when the database gets prepared. Now till 2014 there was no say, there was no mention about this Svamitva scheme. There was no point as to where one can get the ownership of their own houses whereby they are residing from decades and decades. But now, up to 2014, we have seen it how on one side government is ensuring that under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, residential or Awas or houses can be given to the people. So on the other side, who are already living in the houses or any kind of land as an asset they have, how can they can be given ownership right? That is being done by the government. And yes, there's a state and center coordination as well. And yes, gradually this database is prepared with state-of-the-art technologies like drone technologies, so that a proper ownership status can be provided or can be given to the owner who is already residing in that property or has that specific land.
Okay, just taking Shubhendu's question forward, a state of Madhya Pradesh that's got this particular scheme. Which are the other states, where this particular scheme is implemented? And since you said the database is being collected, how likely is it that, it's going to expand to other states, and how quickly is it possible?
Well, in 2020, we have seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi did interact with the beneficiaries of the Svamitva scheme. The states like Uttar Pradesh, states like Bihar, we've already seen this work is being done. Now, states are gradually coming forward, preparing their database, and various southern states as well, and various other states are coming forward, and they're already distributing this kind of Svamitva scheme. This is being done at the state level as well to provide the cards or the Svamitva or primarily the ownership status to the people who are already residing. Now, since the number is very much high as far as Madhya Pradesh is concerned, that means close to 1.7 lakh residential status or the ownership status will be given. Now, 1.7 lakh means close to 5 lakh people you can assume, if in case in one residential status, if in case there's 4 to 5 people living, so close to 5 lakh people will be getting directly the ownership rights, so this means a lot in a state like Madhya Pradesh, and this sets a tone and tenor of the entire policy. That means if in case Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself giving this kind of status or the ownership status to the people of Madhya Pradesh, this also sets the tone and tenor in the entire country about this policy, that yes, how state government should come forward. But earlier in 2020, we have seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself interacting with the Svamitva scheme beneficiaries and handing over the Svamitva cards or the ownership cards to various other beneficiaries of other states as well. Uttar Pradesh is one of them, Bihar is one of them, and various other states as well. But now gradually this scheme we are witnessing, getting more and more better response from the state governments, and yes, state government are preparing the database as far as this Svamitva scheme or Svamitva Yojana is concerned, and yes, drone technology is being used so that there is no dispute. There is complete transparency as far as allotment or primarily as far as demarcation is concerned. And yes, the central government is closely monitoring, and they can monitor it completely from the center, and they can ensure that there is no dispute and there is complete transparency involved. And yes, property status or ownership status is being given to the beneficiaries who are already residing there at the Gram Panchayat level, at the Panchayat level primarily. People over there are various committees being formed so that proper, demarcation can be done of the residential status as well. There are various residential plots and areas whereby there is no proper demarcation. Drones are being used there also. At the Panchayati level, at the block level primarily, the committees have been formed so that there can be proper demarcation as far as residential areas is also concerned. So there is complete transparency and there is no dispute as far as ownership rights are concerned, so that, this gives a complete, a sense of ownership to the person who's already living in that residential area. So it's a big move primarily as far as Svamitva Yojana is concerned. And today Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be handing over these Svamitva cards or these property right papers to the beneficiaries of Madhya Pradesh.
Right there, Arun, thanks very much for joining us with all those updates and details about Svamitva Yojana. Moving on now, let's talk about the vaccination drive, COVID vaccination drive as it is progressing in the country. In a significant achievement, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed the 92 crore landmark milestone. Over 92.11 crore vaccine doses have been administered so far, while over 54.08 lakh vaccine doses were administered just yesterday.
Well, staying with India's vaccines, the World Health Organization will take a final call on the emergency use listing for Bharat Biotech's Covaxin by next week. India's first indigenous COVID-19 vaccine, Covaxin, demonstrated 77.8% efficacy in its phase 3 clinical trial. Representatives of Bharat Biotech made a presentation before the WHO Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization in Geneva in this regard on Tuesday. The vaccine maker told WHO that the jab has been approved in 14 countries and around 70 million doses have been distributed overseas. Grading of evidence assessment is on, and as per sources, the WHO could recommend Covaxin for those aged 18 and above.
And the National Health Authority has revised the health benefit package master under Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana scheme. In the revised version of Health Benefit Package, or HBP 2.2, rates of some health packages have been increased by 20% to 400%. 400 procedure rates have been revised. One new additional medical management package related to black fungus has been added to the list. The HBP 2.2 will be implemented from November 2021. Revised rates will be applicable to various categories, including oncology procedures, medical management procedures like a procedure for dengue, acute febrile illness and so on, surgical package treatment for black fungus and other procedures like right-left heart catheterization, PDA closure, anthrodesis, cholecystomy, appendectomy, etc. Union Minister of Health and Family Welfare Mansukh Mandavia has expressed hope that the rationalized HPP will further improve the uptake of scheme at private hospitals, leading to reduced out-of-pocket expenditure for beneficiaries.
Well, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways issued a list of incentives and disincentives pertaining to the vehicle scrapping policy on Tuesday. These incentives and disincentives combined are aimed at encouraging the vehicle owners to discard their old and polluting vehicles having higher maintenance and fuel consumption costs. In this regard, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has issued a GSR notification in the Gazette of India, which shall come into force from the first day of April 2022. As an incentive, there will be a waiver of the fee for issue of certificate of registration for a new vehicle purchased against the authority of the certificate of deposit right issued by the registered vehicle scrapping facility for a vehicle being scrapped. As regards to disincentives, there will be an increase in the fee for conducting fitness tests and renewal of fitness certificates for motor vehicles more than 15 years old. There will also be an increase in the fitness certification fee for transport vehicles more than 15 years old, and renewal of registration fee for personal vehicles, that's non-transport vehicles more than 15 years old, will also be increased.
Moving on, in a disturbing development, terrorists shot dead 3 civilians, including owner of famous Srinagar-based pharmacy Bindru Medicate, in 3 separate incidents in Srinagar and Bandipora yesterday evening. Owner of Bindru Medicate, Makhanlal Bindru, was shot at his pharmacy near Iqbal Park. Street hawker identified as Virendra Paswan of Bhagalpur, Bihar, was killed at Lal Bazar area in Srinagar, and Muhammad Shafi Lone, Sumo stand President Nadikhai, was slain at Shahgund, Bandipora. A major search operation is underway in the area. And Lieutenant Governor Jammu and Kashmir Manoj Sinha expressed deep anguish to hear about the terror attack on Makhanlal Bindru, owner of Bindru Medicate. He also strongly condemned the killings of civilians Virendra Paswan and Mohammad Shafi Loni by terrorists. Strongly condemning this cowardly act, he expressed deep condolences to the bereaved family. He said the barbaric act of killing innocent people is against humanity. LG assured that terrorists will never succeed in their nefarious designs and the perpetrators of this heinous act will be brought to justice very soon. And our colleague Salman Qazi is joining us from Srinagar with more updates. Salman, disturbing developments as civilians are killed in Srinagar. Take us through the updates and what progress has been made as far as investigation is concerned.
This is definitely a huge disturbing trend that has been observed recently in Kashmir. 3 civilians have been killed in one evening yesterday. One Kashmiri Pandit Bindru, ML Bindru, and out-of-state businessman Virender Paswan and a sumo driver Mohammad Shafi Lone. They were killed in a span of 3 hours, and these targeted killings have emerged as a huge security threat now here in Jammu and Kashmir. Because these are creating a huge atmosphere of fear, and I mean, this year almost 23 targeted killings have been attempted by militants and have been done by militants, and this is definitely as the targets in the security forces have dried up. These targets have been taken on to accomplish their own goals. So definitely these are this is a disturbing development, and it has been recognized by the security forces, and they have said that this kind of an targeted killing and hybrid militancy is emerging as a new kind of threat to the peace in Jammu and Kashmir. There have been these killings have been done by people, and they seem to have vanished from those spots. There are investigations going on to find out one of the killings, the Virender Paswan at Lal Bazar area has been. There are media reports that it has been owned by Islamic State of ISHP, which is an Islamic State purported to be an Islamic State affiliate operating in Jammu and Kashmir. So definitely we are seeing some patterns on this whole thing, but no credible leads have yet been discussed with the media. I'm sure that the security forces and police would have some more leads on it, but and they will be shared in the due course. But right now, there are no leads that are in the media.
Salman, looking at, is there a pattern that you see, especially when it comes to this attack on civilians? 3 days before, we'd seen similar incidents in Chatabal and also in Srinagar, where civilians were attacked and killed. So is there a pattern that you're seeing now emerging?
Yeah, this is the 23rd civilian killing, a targeted civilian killing, where someone with a pistol is coming and killing someone, and most of these are militancy-related incidents. These are non business rivalries or gang rivalries. So this is emerging as a new tactic to achieve their political goals in this thing. So it's the 23rd and 5 in the week and 3 in one evening. So you can understand the gravity of the situation. Definitely, there is a pattern. You can see that one of them is a Pandit. He's a well-established businessman, one of the leading pharmacists here in Jammu and Kashmir, and he had been operating throughout 90s, even at the height of militancy in the 90s. Then there is a non-local who had come, a small Thelewala, who was also killed. So, and one more businessman, which is the sumo driver. I don't know. Not all of them have been owned as of yet, but there is a strong indication that these are all militancy-related incidents.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this morning, giving us an insight, especially into that civilian killings that's taking place in Jammu and Kashmir. Well, moving on now to another story where President Ramnath Kovind will live on a 3-day visit to Karnataka today. Tomorrow, the President will inaugurate the newly built teaching hospital of Chamarajanagar Institute of Medical Sciences at Chamarajanagar. On Friday, President Kovind will visit the Dakshinamaya Sri Shartha Peetham and the Shankara Advaita Research Center in Sringeri.
And moving on, let's move on to our next section where we bring you news from across the world across the globe. Let's first take a look at the COVID figures from across the world. So far, more than 23 crore 65 lakh 61,000 people from across the world have been infected by COVID-19, while over 21 crore 36 lakh 79 patients have also recovered from the infection. The deadly COVID infection has claimed lives of more than 48 lakh 30,000 people worldwide. With the maximum number of COVID-19 cases and casualties, United States continues to be the worst affected nation. The country has so far reported 4 crore 47 lakh COVID-19 cases and 7 lakh 24,000 deaths.
Well, in some other international updates, the European Union's 27 leaders met for a roundtable discussion during a summit in Slovenia on Tuesday, focusing on the EU's approach to dealing with China and with the United States. The summit held at the Slovenian Hill Estate is one of the first one on the Sino-European strategy since the bloc imposed sanctions on Beijing in March, drawing retaliation that jeopardized a new investment pact. The leaders also deliberated over how to forge a more forceful European foreign policy after Washington ignored European pleas to extend the pullout from Afghanistan and formed a partnership with Australia and Britain to counter China that excluded France. European Council President Charles Michel said that the bloc had to show collective intelligence to shape its response to the developments. The EU leaders will be joined today by the 6 Balkan countries, hoping one day to join the bloc.
After the recent developments in Afghanistan, with China in the Indo-Pacific, it's very clear it's important to develop what I call the collective intelligence of the EU. First, we listen to each other, we listen to different arguments around the table, and we try to cooperate, we try to coordinate, and again, the unity is a very strong European asset.
And French President Emmanuel Macron said he hoped to close the rift with US counterpart Joe Biden when the two leaders meet in Rome at the end of this month. Macron, who is in Slovenia for EU summit, said he wanted the longtime allies to work together once again in good faith. Reconciliation at the Group of 20 summit on October 31st would follow a Biden-Macron phone call last month and potentially end a transatlantic row triggered last month by the United States negotiation in secret of a military pact known as AUKUS with Australia and Britain to counter China, excluding France.
I just believe in facts. I do hope, I do think it's feasible. I do think it's more productive for both of us. I will see. And I think we're scheduled to discuss together mid-October. We will catch up during the G20. And I think it will be the right occasion to see how we can re-engage very concretely. My point is not, honestly, it's not an issue about words or perception. It's an issue about facts and what to do together.
And earlier, French President and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken held talks in Paris. The French leaders' first meeting with the US officials since the AUKUS furor plunged the two countries' relations into a crisis. The development on Tuesday came as US President Joe Biden's administration moves to repair the damage caused to ties by excluding France from AUKUS, a new security initiative involving the US, United Kingdom and Australia.
US President Joe Biden has warned that the United States risks losing its edge in the global economy if Congress doesn't pass his twin economic packages. Biden traveled to Michigan to stump for the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure plan, which has been stalled in the House by Democratic progressives who want to see a separate $3.5 trillion spending plan approved in Congress. The Senate has already passed the infrastructure bill, but the legislation has been slowed in the House by progressives who are using it as leverage for the larger spending package, which is part of Biden's social and economic agenda.
These bills are not about left versus right, or moderate versus progressive, or anything that pits Americans against one another. These bills are about competitiveness versus complacency. They're about opportunity versus decay. They're about leading the world or continue to let the world pass us by, which is literally happening. To support these investments is to create a rising America. America is still the largest economy in the world. We still have the most productive workers and the most innovative minds in the world. But we risk losing our edge as a nation. Our infrastructure used to be the best in the world, literally, not figuratively. Today, according to the World Economic Forum, we rank 13th. Our infrastructure, 12 nations have a better infrastructure than we do, which means they can move product, they can do so many things better than we can do it.
Moving on, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, special envoy, met Taliban leaders in Afghanistan on Tuesday to discuss the humanitarian crisis and ways to prevent the country from becoming an incubator for militants. Simon Gass, Johnson's High Representative for Afghanistan, met Taliban leaders including Amir Khan Muttaqi, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar and Abdul Salam Hanafi. Gass was accompanied by Charge d'Affaires of UK mission to Afghanistan in Doha. According to UK Foreign Office statement, the leaders discussed how UK could help Afghanistan address humanitarian crisis, the importance of preventing the country from becoming an incubator for terrorism, and the need for continued safe passage for those who want to leave the country.
Staying with Britain, in Britain, fuel crisis continued due to the countrywide truck drivers' strike. Meanwhile, military personnel were seen driving fuel supplies from depots in southern England on Tuesday after the government ordered the army to assist in tackling an acute shortage of truck drivers. Several people wearing military fatigues could be seen driving trucks and inside fuel depots in Hemel, Hempstead and Purfleet on the outskirts of London. Britain's supply chains for everything from petrol and poultry to medicines and milk have been strained to breaking point by shortages of labour in the wake of Brexit and COVID crisis. Panic buying of fuel amid the shortage of truckers triggered chaotic scenes across major cities last week, with queues of drivers stacked up. British ministers have repeatedly denied that the fuel crisis has anything to do with Brexit and have cast the trucker shortage as a global problem, though other European neighbours have not experienced queues at gas stations. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said that 127 drivers had applied for trucker visas amid a shortage of drivers that has strained the supply chains to breaking point. Boris Johnson further added that the haulage industry had only given the details of just 127 international drivers when asked for names.
And Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen testified before US Congress on Tuesday. This comes a day after Facebook and its units suffered a major outage. Haugen's testimony raised concerns from activists and researchers that Facebook systematically promotes harmful content, encourages engagements at all cost. Lawmakers accuse Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg of pushing for higher profits while being cavalier about user safety. They demanded regulators investigate whistleblower accusations that the social media company harms children and stokes divisions. Lawmakers called for Zuckerberg to testify before the committee and for the Securities and Exchange Commission and Federal Trade Commission to investigate the company. Haugen, a former product manager at Facebook's civic misinformation team who has turned whistleblower, said Facebook has sought to keep its operations confidential and would not change on its own. She even revealed that she was the one who provided documents used in a Wall Street Journal investigation and a Senate hearing on Instagram's harm to teenage girls. Haugen added that Facebook had also done too little to prevent its site from being used by people planning violence.
Facebook wants you to believe that the problems we're talking about are unsolvable. They want you to believe in false choices. They want you to believe that you must choose between a Facebook full of divisive and extreme content or losing one of the most important values our country was founded upon, free speech. That you must choose between public oversight of Facebook's choices and your personal privacy. Facebook's own research says they cannot adequately identify dangerous content, and as a result, those dangerous algorithms that they admit are picking up the extreme sentiments, the division. They can't protect us from the harms that they know exist in their own system. Facebook understands that if they want to continue to grow, they have to find new users. They have to make sure that the next generation is just as engaged with Instagram as the current one.
Well, more oil spill off the Southern California coast has left fishers dead, birds washing up on the shore, and miles of beaches closed. The U.S. Coast Guard has said a massive oil spill was caused by a displaced pipeline. Seeing the intensity of the oil spill, the U.S. Department of Transportation said that the entire pipeline should remain shut until ordered to be reopened. A leak in a pipeline was detected on Saturday morning by the Pipeline Amplify Energy Corporation, who owns the pipeline and connected rigs. Roughly 3,000 barrels of oil were spilled into the Pacific Ocean. The chief executive of the company said the oil appears to have leaked through a 13-inch gash in the pipe, which was pulled like a bowstring about 105 feet from where it should have been. The movement of the pipeline was discovered by divers and remotely operated vehicles.
On further investigation, we've determined that approximately 4,000 feet of the 17.7 mile pipeline has been displaced, and it's been laterally displaced by 105 feet. What they further located was a 13-inch split in that pipe, on the side of the pipe, that is a likely source of release of oil. There is no visible product that can be observed coming from that line, so there's no oil coming out of that line from that split.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged OECD member countries on Tuesday to set ambitious carbon emissions targets in the upcoming COP26 summit in Glasgow. Speaking at a ministerial meeting at Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Blinken said climate actions by OECD countries will have a massive impact in limiting temperature rise to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius, as they produce more than 28% of the world's carbon emissions and account for 60% of global GDP. He also stressed the importance of OECD tools such as Digital Climate Tracker to hold countries accountable to their goals. Throughout the year, OECD has been marking the 60th anniversary of its founding. With 38 member countries, OECD crafts policies, provides data and analysis aimed at providing policies that foster prosperity and equality.
The Nobel Prize for Physics has been awarded to scientists from Japan, Germany and Italy. Sukarno Manabe, Klaus Hasselmann were cited for their work in the physical modeling of Earth's climate, quantifying variability and reliably predicting global warming. The second half of the prize was awarded to Giorgio Parisi for the discovery of the interplay of disorder and fluctuations in physical systems from atomic to planetary scales. The winners were announced on Tuesday by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. Manabe is affiliated to the Princeton University in the US, while Hasselmann is a professor at the Max Planck Institute of Meteorology in Hamburg.
And a Russian actress and film director arrived at the International Space Station on Tuesday, beating Tom Cruise in the race to shoot the first movie in the space. Their Soyuz MS-19 spacecraft docked at about 1500 GMT at the station that orbits Earth at an altitude of around 220 miles. The filming of the movie, The Challenge, puts Russia on the course to beat United States in the latest chapter of the space race. The two reached the cosmos ahead of Cruise, whose plans to blast off on a SpaceX rocket for an as-yet untitled Hollywood film were announced by NASA last year. Both will spend about 12 days on the space station, filming segments for The Challenge under a commercial agreement between Roscosmos and Moscow-based media entities. In the film, the lead actor plays a doctor who is asked to travel to the space station to save a cosmonaut's life. Cosmonaut crew members are also set to appear.
Well, let's now move on to our next section where we get you the latest from the social media world in Web News Review.
And Preeti joins us for more updates. Preeti, good morning. Over to you for Web Review.
Good morning, Subhendu. Good morning, Anil, and a warm morning to our viewers as well. When we talk of the Web Review, then the first slide up your screen is from Indian Express. The Indian Express says Zydus shot ready, co-vaccine results soon. Kids jabs plan out next week. Now we know that the schools, most of the schools in the country have opened for high classes, and also there is talk of kids vaccination. And here we have this report coming in from Indian Express. The National Expert Group on Vaccine Administration for COVID-19, that is NEGVEC, is expected to receive scientific recommendations from the Standing Committee on National Technical Advisory Group, that is NTAGI, in the next few days. Also, it says that the third vaccine will be tested in children, and that is called Covovax, the Indian version of COVID-19 developed by US-based Novavax, which will be manufactured by Serum Institute of India. Also, it says that the test will be conducted at 23 sites across the country, and the trials of biological ease Corbevax, this is another vaccine. This is expected to take place in children at 10 sites in the country. This is the report talking of kids vaccination. Also, through our channel, we've been repeatedly asking our viewers to continue being part of the fight against pandemic. Remember, wear a mask, wear it correctly and properly, and also those eligible go and get yourself vaccinated. The next slide up your screens comes in from Mint. The Mint says revenge tourism to trigger third wave, cautions ICMR. Very aptly, the Mint paper talks of it and it calls it as revenge tourism. We know that the festive season is soon to kick in, and also which means that people would be wanting to again step out of their homes and also go for vacations. The ICMR has cautioned. It has said that 47% rise could be witnessed in the third wave because of increasing leisure travel during the festive season, and could even occur 2 weeks earlier than the previously estimated November peak. Now also the paper says that ICMR noted that the impact on smaller states till now was lesser, and smaller states like Himachal Pradesh and Assam, but they could see a surge in visitors and that could lead to a rise in the cases there. Also, the paper specifically mentions that ICMR has said that it may be helpful if India has a national level guideline on domestic travel during COVID as well. The next slide up your screens is from Hindustan Times. The Hindustan Times says Air Force Air Chief Marshal assumed office and he took charge from. And the last slide up your screens is from Times of India. The Times of India says Taliban resumes passport services for Afghans. It carries the details. It says Taliban resume passport services for Afghans, and it says that the new passports will be issued with the title of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. This has been specified and not the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan as was thought of earlier. And also it says that Taliban has at least 25,000 passports ready to be issued in the first place, and it has also called all the women employees at the passport offices to come back and resume their work. Also, the paper says that in the last nearly 2 months, at least 1,70,000 people have filed applications for getting passports. So that was it. A quick web news review from my side. It's back to Shubhendu and Anil for the rest of Breakfast.
Well, a quick and comprehensive review there by Preeti. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this morning on Breakfast News.
Absolutely. Moving on, let's talk about our next segment, BizBuzz. And Wall Street ended sharply higher on Tuesday as Microsoft, Apple spearheaded a strong rebound in growth stocks, and investors awaited the monthly payrolls data later this week that could influence US Federal Reserve's decision on when to scale back monetary stimulus. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Wall Street's most valuable companies each rose following a sell-off in growth stocks the day before. Facebook Inc. rebounded a day after taking a beating when its app and its photo-sharing platform, Instagram, went offline for hours. Almost all of the 11 major S&P 500 sector indices rose, with financials, communication services, technology among the top performers. Investors will watch September employment data on Friday for hints about the tapering of US Federal Reserve's asset purchase program. Adding to concerns, the Fed could tighten monetary policy sooner than expected. Recent data showed increased consumer spending, accelerated factory activity, and elevated inflation.
Meanwhile, after over 6 hours of global outage that saw Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp go dark for billions of users, Facebook said that the cascade of problems was an error during a routine maintenance of its network of data centers. In a blog, Vice President of Engineering Santosh Janardhan said that the global outage had begun when the company's engineers issued a command that unintentionally disconnected Facebook data centers from the rest of the world. He described the error as originating within the company's global backbone of fiber optic cables and data centers. Facebook systems are designed to audit commands to prevent mistakes, but the audit tool had a bug and failed to stop the command that caused the outage, the company said. The outage was not caused by malicious activity, it added.
And rating agency Moody's Investor Service has upgraded India's sovereign rating outlook to stable from negative, citing an ebbing of the risk from COVID-19 and the negative feedback between the real economy and the financial system. Moodys said it expects real GDP to surpass pre-pandemic levels of 2019-20 this year itself, as the ongoing economic recovery is picking up steam with the activity upticks broadening across sectors. It expects 2021-22 to record 9.3% growth in GDP, followed by 7.9% next year. In June of 2020, Moody's had downgraded India's sovereign rating to BA3 from BA2 with a negative outlook.
Well, let's now move on to our next segment, Sports Track. Well, starting first up with IPL, after a top-class bowling show, opener Ishan Kishan scored a fluent 25-ball 50 to guide Mumbai to an 8-wicket win over Rajasthan at the Sharjah Cricket Stadium to stay alive in the race for a playoff position in the Indian Premier League. The Rohit Sharma-led side chased down a target of 91 in the 9th over of the innings. Earlier bowling first, Nathan Coulter-Nile was the top performer with the ball for the defending champions. Coulter-Nile gave away 14 runs in his 4 overs, picking up 4 wickets. Jimmy Neesham then got 3 wickets, while Jasprit Bumrah got 2. With this victory, Mumbai get a boost in the net run rate and move up to the 5th spot in the points table. Now, if they win their final league clash against Hyderabad, then they stand a better chance to qualify for the playoffs. Rajasthan, meanwhile, need to win their final fixture against Kolkata and depend on other results to get through to the final 4. The top 4 teams reach the playoffs.
Meanwhile, in terms of significance, Royal Challengers Bangalore still have a lot to play for in their remaining 2 matches. If they win those 2 games against Sunrisers Hyderabad today and Delhi Capitals on Friday, they will leapfrog into the 2nd place if Chennai Super Kings lose their final match against Punjab Kings tomorrow. Royal Challengers are unlikely to tinker with the combination that has worked so well in the last few matches of the UAE leg of the season. Sunrisers, on the other hand, have the freedom to experiment with players that have not had a sustained run in the playing 11. They might also want to test the temperament of some players ahead of the auction.
Well, it's tit for tat in sports now. India on Tuesday pulled out of next year's Birmingham Commonwealth Games hockey competition. Hockey India says the focus is on Asian Games. Hockey India also cited COVID-19 concerns and UK's discriminatory quarantine rules for travellers from the country. Hockey India reasoned that there is only a 32-day window available between the Birmingham Games and the Hangzhou Asian Games, and it can't risk sending its players to the UK, which has been one of the worst affected countries by the coronavirus pandemic. England, in return, have asked the junior hockey team to pull out of the Junior World Cup in Bhubaneswar this year. Well, time now to take a look at our daily episode on Saga of Freedom Struggle.
And in today's episode of Saga of Freedom Struggle, we remember three brave freedom fighters: Paramasivan Subbarayan, Baba Saheb Bhosle, Bojoram Kalita, who have their death anniversaries on this day.
October is important in the history of the freedom movement as the death anniversaries of three freedom fighters fall on this date. They are Paramasivan Subbarayan, Baba Saheb Bhosle and Bojoram Kalita. Besides being a freedom fighter, Paramasivan Subbarayan was also a politician, diplomat and the Chief Minister of Madras Presidency. He was born on the 11th of September 1889 in Tamil Nadu. After graduating from Presidency College Madras, he pursued his MA at the University of Oxford. Later, he obtained an LLB from the University of London and an LLD from Trinity College, Dublin. Subbarayan worked as an advocate in the Madras High Court. He started his political career as a member of the Justice Party, which he quit later and was supported as an independent candidate by the Swaraj Party.
In 1922, he was nominated to the Madras Legislative Council. He served as the Chief Minister of Madras Presidency from 1926 to 1930.
In 1933, he joined the Indian National Congress. In 1937, when the Congress swept to power in the Madras Presidency, Subbarayan was appointed as the Law Minister under C. Rajagopalachari's Chief Ministership. Subbarayan was imprisoned for participating in the Quit India movement. He was elected to the Constituent Assembly from Madras and made important contributions to the debates on adult franchise, civil services, rule of law and the official language.
From 1949 to 1951, Subbarayan served as Independent India's first ambassador to Indonesia. Subbarayan also served as a member of the Rajya Sabha from 1954 to 1957. He was elected to the Lok Sabha from Tiruchengood in 1957 and served as a member till 1962. He was again elected to the Lok Sabha in 1962 but was instead appointed as the governor of Maharashtra. He passed away on 6th October 1962. In 1989, during his birth centenary, India Post issued a stamp to honor him.
On this day in 2007, a veteran freedom fighter from Maharashtra, Baba Saheb Bhosle, passed away at the age of 86. Bhosle participated in the Satyagraha in 1939 while he was a student. He was imprisoned for 1.5 years in 1941-42. Bhosle was born on January 15, 1921 at Satara in western Maharashtra. He was a law graduate and completed bar at law in 1951 and practiced for 10 years in Satara. In 1980, he was elected to the Maharashtra Assembly and later handled various important portfolios. Former President Pratibha Patil was a member of Bhosle's cabinet during his tenure as the Chief Minister of Maharashtra in 1982-83.
Bhosle started the scheme of providing free education to girl students till 10th class. He started the Aurangabad bench of the Bombay High Court and also created Gadchiroli district. Bhosle was instrumental in initiating welfare measures for freedom fighters and started a pension scheme for them.
On this day in 1942, freedom fighter Bhojaram Kolita made supreme sacrifice for the motherland. He was an active participant in the Quit India movement. On 21st September 1942, he took part in a procession at Tezpur organized to mourn the death of those who died in the Dhekiajuli firing. When the procession arrived at the compound of a church, the participants were surrounded from all sides by the police armed with lathis and guns. The police gave them 10 minutes to disperse.
No sooner had the crowd begun moving out, a very heavy lathi charge was made on them from behind. Many received serious beatings. Bhajoram Kalita, aged 65, was badly injured. 15 days after this incident, he succumbed to his injuries on 6th October 1942.
Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of Breakfast News. But remember that fight against COVID-19 continues and we are getting into festive season. So don't consider yourself to be safe if you're vaccinated. It's not a trade-off. If you got yourself vaccinated, you can drop your guard. Keep that going hand in hand because we all need to see a better tomorrow.
Absolutely. And the festive season is here as the autumnal winds roll in. India gets ready to usher in Goddess Durga and her children for 5 days of festivities. Ahead of the Pujo, the artisans around the country get busy sculpting intricate idols of 10-armed goddess. With just a handful of days left, idols are getting the finishing touch before being taken to communities and houses for worshipping. We're leaving you with those beautiful visuals as we conclude for the day.
Bye-bye. Take care.